Hello everyone, I'm here to recap the game between the Jets and the Vikings, and Minnesota won this game 37-17, and Darnold was 17 of 42 for 206 yards, a 4.9 average yards per attempt. He had one touchdown, three interceptions, was sacked three times, and had a rating of 34.4. Now, the running game, which prior to this game was ranked 7th in the league, they got Crowell carried the ball 11 times for 29 yards, 2.6 yards a carry. Bilal Powell, 5 carries for 20 yards. Sam Darnold got 6 carries for 18. Trenton Cannon, 2 for 4. So that's 24 carries for 71 yards and a 3 yards per carry average overall. And Sam Darnold also ran in for 1 score. Now, receiving-wise, Trenton Cannon caught 4 of his 5 targets for 69 yards, had a long of 35. Robbie Anderson was 3 of 10 for 44 yards. Chris Herndon, 4 of 7, and he got 42 yards and a touchdown. Crowell caught 1 of 3 balls for 21. Andre Roberts, 2 of 6 for 21 yards. Deontay Burnett, 1 of 2 for 9 yards. Bilal Powell caught his lone target for 5. Jermaine Kearse only had 2 targets, caught neither of them. And Eric Tomlinson was 1 of 2 for -5 yards on a tight end screen. And they were 2 of 13 on third down conversions, which is 15%. But they were 2 of 3 in the red zone, which was 67%. They also had 4 turnovers, and they held the ball for 27 minutes and 49 seconds of the game. Now, Minnesota, who have now moved to 4-2-1, Cousins was 25 of 40 for 241 yards, a 6 yards per average attempt, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked once, and he had a rating of 95.9. Now, Latavius Murray, he carried the ball 15 times for 69 yards, a 4.6 yards per carry average. He had 2 touchdowns and a long of 38 yards. Rock Thomas carried the ball 1 time for 23 yards, and Mike Boone 4 carries, 4 yards. Cousins 2 for -1, and Diggs is 2 for -7. Now, receiving, Thielen 9 of 10 for 110 yards, 12.2 yards per catch, and 1 touchdown with a long of 34. Robinson caught 1 target out of his 3, and he got 34 yards on the last touchdown on the 4th and 8th play. And Diggs caught 8 of 14 passes for 33 yards, a 4.1 average yards per catch. And Zylstra caught his lone target for 23. Rudolph 1 of 4 for 16. Murray 2 for 2 on 14. Treadwell caught all 3 of his targets for 11 yards, and Boone didn't catch his lone target. Now, Minnesota was 2 of 15 on third down conversions, which is 13%. 1 of 3 in the red zone, so 33%. They had no turnovers, and they had the ball for 32 minutes and 11 seconds. Now, offensively, I think Kirk was kind of meh. I think we saw some of the... we saw the good and the bad. We saw what makes Kirk a better quarterback in the league, and I think we also saw what made Kirk not signed by the Redskins. Which I mean by that is you saw some questionable decision-making at times. There was one in the back of the end zone that you shouldn't do. And then there was... obviously, he threw another fumble, pretty much, which that's kind of a weird thing to happen once, let alone twice. He's done it again, so you kind of wonder, is this a thing is this just who he is? And he also had some batted balls today again, so you kind of, but you kind of saw the good and the bad of Kirk Cousins today. And the other thing I think we do need to ask is, did the wind affect the throws? And maybe a little bit. So, grain of salt, some of these things, because it was... MetLife is one of the windiest stadiums in the league, just the way it is and where it's located. And so, it's kind of... that might have affected some things here. And if you do take some away the negative runs, by Diggs and Cousins, I guess, kneeling, you do have 96 yards instead of the 88, so the run game did get going more today. You didn't see much of it until the second half when Latavius kind of, he kind of was breaking some more runs later in the game. And I still do think Brian O'Neill should start over Rashad Hill once Riley Reef is healthy. And the reason why I say that is at this point it becomes very clear that that's an upgrade right there. And once Reef is back, because I think we saw even today, the one time Kirk was sacked, you kind of saw Hill was the bigger problem than the rookie on the other side, even though everyone's been telling us, like, oh, hey, no, this guy, he's a project. And he might be a project, but the project is still an upgrade over Rashad Hill. And a lot of people don't like admitting this because Rashad Hill is the more experienced player. And I think when it comes down to it, you need to start the better player. And especially when you're talking about next week in New Orleans, Cameron Jordan, he's pretty good. But yeah, Thielen, still very good. He's approaching a different NFL record of just most consecutive games, not even just the start of season to at all, which Megatron holds with 8 over 100 yards consecutively. So he has a chance to possibly tie this thing next week. But maybe we calm down with the Diggs things just because it feels kind of forced at this point. You're throwing screens to him. You're giving him handoffs, which I don't mind them doing these things. I mind how often they're doing these things. And it feels like it's forced. And it wasn't really having much success today. As I said, he only had, 33 yards today on 8 catches, and he had -7 yards running. So maybe calm down a bit. Don't stop doing them, but don't, force this as much as they have been. And I do think DiFilippo made some questionable play calls. I think he set himself up with some pretty rough third down situations, and I think that's part of the whole 13% thing that we had going in there. And defensively, I think we played really well. We kept the Jets at bay in terms of the run game. We're averaging something like 127 yards a game. They were 7th in the league in rushing. We held them just like 71 yards today. So, man, one-dimensional. We were able to come after Darnold. We had 3 sacks. We were able to pressure him. We got turnovers. And overall, it was a pretty good day for the defense. I do think we still saw some things pop up that have been kind of on this team a little bit throughout this whole year so far anyway, which was we had a wheel route get loose with Trenton Cannon and tight ends. I know he didn't have a lot of yards, but he still got a touchdown today, and he almost had 2. So it's a little, because week 1, if you remember, George Kittle had 90 yards. He had that one pass that would have been a touchdown had he caught it, but it just went right through his hands. Week 2, I think Jimmy Graham had 95 yards. Buffalo, I don't think the tight end killed us in Buffalo, but I do think everything else did. And there's a lot of tight end stuff that tends to happen to this team this year. So we still struggle with the tight ends. I don't know why that is. And special teams, Bailey did go 3 of 4, which I know is 75% if you do the numbers. But he also went 4 for 4 on the extra points in less than ideal conditions out there in the wind. And then Matt Weil, he came out averaging 47.8 yards a punt, so pretty good. That's pretty good. And supposedly the Barr and Rhodes injuries are not serious by Mike Zimmer. But overall, it's an ugly win. I know the 37 doesn't say ugly win, but it was, for the majority of the game, this was kind of close. And so ugly win, but they handled business on a team they should have beaten, and they did beat. And they're 4-2-1, first place in the division currently, and on to New Orleans. But whatever you guys think think in your head, comment down in the comments. And until next time, I bid y'all adieu.